Good. Yeah. All right. Unique stuff, man. Check it out. All right.
All right. Cold Thursday night in Chicago. I'm extremely excited to play for you guys. I'm going to do kind of a quasi-concert, quasi-masterclass. I know there's a lot of sax players out there. And by the way, how many of you are sax players? By the way, all right, you're my people. I like this crowd. And how many of you are non-sax players, but you like music? All right, yes. And sure, you brought your sax, right? Did I see? Okay, yeah. Sax player. So yeah, so I'll get into a little bit of some specifics, but I've also saved some of that stuff for online. I don't know if you guys know, but I have a tutorial series online, Beatbox Sax, and almost all of these techniques that I use throughout my playing can be found on there. If you type in like Beatbox Sax, slap tonguing, double tonguing, all that stuff is on there in much more detail, but I'll go into some specific things, and I'll also kind of open it up for some questions if you guys have some specific things. But I'm going to continue doing some other stuff. I opened with a couple of my own originals, and I also like to do some cover songs, and the more you get to know me, you'll find that I have a soft spot in my heart for all things 80s and 90s. And sometimes like the cheesier the better, you know? I'll talk more about that. But this song is the great 90s tune called What Is Love? Oh, I'll do that. I'll do that in a second. The Police tune, yes, for sure. I do take requests if you know, if you know the songs that I know. So, this is What Is Love. And after that one and a lot of my songs, I think I deserve a little bit of water. So talk amongst yourselves as I chug this water.
I wouldn't be surprised.
How do you not get lightheaded?
The secret is I do.
That's not water.
All right. So you've seen my some of my original stuff, the pop side with What Is Love. I also, and I'll talk a little bit about my story, but I did study traditional classical music as well, classical saxophone. I went to a school, Hope College, for jazz and classical performance. It's in Holland, Michigan, so just across the lake. Small school, and then I went to University of Cincinnati, and that was when I kind of veered a little more towards the jazz side of things. But I've always had a place in my heart as well for classical music, and I've learned a lot from classical composers, especially the great Johann Sebastian Bach and his cello suites. Because if you know these pieces, they're written for cello, which is basically a monophonic instrument, just plays one note at a time. But in this piece, Bach has created something where it sounds like there's almost three parts happening. There's the bass line, this do, 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 and then in between there's kind of this middle part, do, 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 kind of like a second part. And then there's a third part, kind of like a melody on top. And then they each move kind of independently of each other. And I remember hearing this and thinking, wow, it kind of sounds like there's 3 instruments happening at one time with just one monophonic instrument like the saxophone. And so that was kind of an inspiration for me as far as like my own compositional styles. Can I make it sound like there's a bass line and a melody without it sounding like this giant intervals? If I were to write out some of my compositions, you would just, if you just looked at it, it'd just be like, what the heck? You know, like, yeah. But then there's a little bit of logic, kind of like this piece where there's, if you look at the bottom notes, those kind of make one line. The middle notes kind of make another one, and then the top ones make another. So that was big influence from composers like Bach. So this I'm just going to do a short little version of his cello suite number 1 for you. That was one of the earlier pieces that I wrote when my chops couldn't handle all of this stuff. So I was like very short little songs here and there. And just in case anyone's interested, that last note, did you guys notice any interesting sound in that? Yeah, so that was something, have any of you guys heard of Colin Stetson? Check him out. He's another solo saxophonist. He does a lot of, his kind of thing is he does lots of arpeggios and he'll sing at the same time. He has a collar around his neck that picks up the singing. And listening to him one time, because I don't know if he talks about this, but I was listening to a recording that he has where he's playing an alto sax and he's playing, you can tell it's all this higher stuff. And then in the middle of the song, it just drops way down. There's just bulk, bulk. And I'm just like, oh, obviously he switched to Barry sax or something there. And then I saw just a really lo-fi YouTube video, and no, he's doing it on alto. And so I'm like, what the heck? How's he doing that? Is he using effects? And I didn't see any effects. And then I kind of did some research onto the whole thing because I could tell he was singing at the same time. And I did some research and I came across this term, this very nerdy music term, Tartini tones. And it's this idea, it's like this kind of physics thing with music where if you have two pitches being sounded at certain intervals, it creates the illusion, kind of the auditory illusion of another note higher and another note lower. And so for instance, a stronger one is a perfect fifth. If you have two instruments that go a perfect fifth and they really match tone, you can kind of, and it's weird, this is like crazy mystical stuff, it's like actually not there, but in your ears you almost can perceive an octave below. So if I sing a perfect fifth above a note that I play, it kind of sounds like an octave below. So check this out. So I'll just do the last note that I ended on, the D flat. So here's the D flat by itself. And then a perfect fifth above. So I'm gonna hum that and add it to that and see if you can hear it drop. Kinda cool, huh?
May I
Yeah, so it has some growly tendencies, but yeah, and you can. But I remember when I came across it, I was like, oh my gosh, I can extend the range an octave. Now it's not, it's pretty tough to do, so I use it kind of just sparingly. But Tartini tones, it's just kind of an interesting thing. Yeah. Let me continue on. That was a little specific, but that's cool. Yeah, let me just tell you a little bit about my story about how because the number one question people ask is like, how did I start to combine beatboxing and saxophone playing? I go by BEATBoX Sax. That's the name of my album. The truth is, the dirty little secret is, I don't know how to beatbox. I don't know how. I don't actually do beatboxing with my mouth, which makes it, I mean, this thing's crammed in my mouth, so you can't really do the normal beatbox sounds. But I never even dreamed, you know, even if you had told me like 5 years ago that I'd be playing solo concerts, you know, for an hour, up to an hour and a half, you know, I'd be like, what? That's gonna be really boring. Really? I'm gonna do that? and so it didn't start where I was like, yes, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do solo stuff. I'm gonna do all these percussive things. No, it was a slow evolution. So I remember just like in grad school, you know, working on my bebop licks. And then I remember hearing, I think it was Jeff Coffin from when he was with the Flettones, and he did something like this. He just did those pop sounds. And I was like, what? What the heck is that? Is he hitting the sax? How did he get that percussive sound? And so doing a little bit of research, asking around, you know, I realized that technique's actually not too tough. I'm actually just kind of going, kind of biting down on the reed and then just releasing a lot of air. So that's not slap tonguing yet. That's. So I kind of learned how to do that, and then it was like, wow, that's cool. It kind of sounds like a drum, you know, like kind of like a snare or something. And so just on the side, you know, particularly like when no one was looking, I'd stick out of my practice room and okay, and then. And just using it as a simple backbeat. That was it. And I didn't think anything beyond that, really. And then I remember maybe, I mean, it might have been like a year later, from the classical side of things, hearing something that sounded maybe like this. And once again, I was like, what? What is that? Oh my gosh. It sounds, to me, it kind of sounded like a slap bass guitar. Dum, dum, dum. And then asking around, looking up online. I don't think my teachers quite knew how to do that. It's a pretty tough technique. But I found out, oh, this is a thing called slap tonguing. And it's actually been around since, I mean, as early as we have recordings of saxophones, people were slap tonguing a little bit. And this technique, just a little side note, this is, for me, it's by far the most important technique that I use, slap tonguing, open slap and closed slap. It's also probably by far the hardest technique. So this was one that took me at least 6 months to get any kind of control over. Any slap tonguers in here? Anybody who can do the slap tonguing? Yeah, actually one of my students is here, Jamin, the youngest one of all can do it. No, and that's the thing I will tell people. I actually have 2 students that I teach. I teach a couple days a week out in Wheaton. 2 of my kind of younger students, they just accidentally did it. That's the way that they would tongue. And so, if any of you are band directors, you may have heard this before. You know, Jamin, this is not you I'm playing. You might hear somebody sound like this at beginning level. They go. Yeah, so you can hear that extra pop in there. That's actually slap tonguing, and without knowing that they're doing that, that's what they're doing. Now, usually teachers will say, stop doing that, too much tongue, less, you know, and that's, of course, you know, you want them to tongue normally. However, I do wish that any of you teachers out there would say, okay, that is awesome what you're doing, and I know a lot of people who would give their left foot for that, to be able to do that. Keep that. But also, let's, you know, here's some other way. Here's how we would normally tongue with the tip of the tongue and whatnot. Now, for the rest of us, including me, Everybody that I know that has had to learn how to slap tongue has always thought there's something wrong with my tongue. There's something wrong with my tongue. I had the same thing because you're just sitting there and it's just not working. Maybe at the very end, I'll talk a little bit more about slap tongue. Would you guys be interested in that? If I kind of talk, okay, cool. I'll talk about that a little bit at the end, just to get things rolling here. But yeah, the gist of it is I'm getting a suction on the reed from my tongue, just my tongue, and it's slapping back. So I learned how to do that. Once again, 6 months, 9 months later, I was kind of getting a hang of that. And I remember thinking, okay, I've got this kind of slap bass sounding thing, and I've got this pop sounding thing. And I remember thinking, that's kind of cool, bass and drums. I mean, I could kind of put those two together. And at the same time, I was playing in a duo with a guitar player. It was kind of, we were kind of doing this kind of weird bluegrass thing, influenced by Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. And now, when you usually have a duo, sax and guitar, sax and piano, when the sax is soloing, what is the guitar player doing?
Chords.
They're comping the chords. When the guitar player solos, what does the sax player do? Drinking, smoking, all those bad things. Yeah, you're kind of just, you're sitting there waiting. Now, I was too impatient with that, and I was like, I want to play something during that. And that was right around the time I was figuring out these techniques. And so I remember thinking, oh, I could do kind of like a bluegrass, like the bass slap thing, you know, the... something like that. And once again, that was kind of all I did for a while. I wasn't thinking about doing all these solo things. But I noticed, you know, I got a good response from people. The guitar player liked it because it kind of freed him up a little bit. And then I remember, and I don't remember the exact order, but a huge thing for me was coming across a vocalist by the name of Bobby McFerrin. How many people know Bobby McFerrin? One of the all-around great musicians. People, the classical side love him, the jazz side love him, the pop side. If you don't know Bobby McFerrin, he has these amazing solo concerts that he'll do, and a lot of times he's kind of known for his crowd interaction. You know, he'll just go to a crowd member and start like playing on their jacket and make up a song. But then he does these solo things with just his voice. So this is kind of getting back to the Bach cello suite thing. With just his voice, you'll swear, man, I hear like two voices or three voices. So he's doing this thing where first of all, he's kind of doing this percussion thing on his chest, kind of doing this beat. And then he'll sing a bass line, and then he'll intersperse it with these melody notes up high. And that's a terrible example. But that's kind of the gist of this. And once again, it's like that Bach thing. And I remember just thinking, man, he's just got the crowd in his hand. This is amazing. One musician. I wonder if I should try to do that, put some melodies into mine. I've got the bass line and the percussion. And so then it was kind of like this idea of, well, and also remembering, oh yeah, I play the saxophone. I'm supposed to do melodies, right? I'm not just a rhythm section instrument. And so I remember then thinking about, okay, maybe I could try this with some songs. And so I tried a jazz song first. And I think the first one I did was like Tenor Madness, the blues song. And so... So there was the melody, and then I thought, okay, let's see if I can add those pops on beats 2 and 4 for kind of a backbeat. So, and then the next step was, okay, so the bass thing. Can I put some bass notes, some slap tongue bass notes, maybe on the downbeats in between there? So 1, 2. And so forth. So now, thank you, thanks. Anytime you clap, I'm going to sneak in a little bit of water. So that's good. Hey! Help hydrate me, applause. So yeah, now obviously, as a performer, I want you to all think that I could just like, just do that, thinking, oh, here's the C, here's and then the melody. The thing is with all this stuff, you're working on it really slow and kind of sometimes writing some of this stuff out. Now I'm getting better with it to where I am able to kind of improvise a little bit, and that's something I'm still working on. Now the next step was, okay, that's cool. I should try this with some other songs, and I wanted to try once again my secret love of the 80s, not so secret anymore, but I went to a great song by The Police. This one's for you. Let's get in the camera out. Now let me actually walk you through a little bit of this one, because this has some kind of different things that I'm using. So if you guys know the great song, Every Breath You Take, we've got this kind of this iconic bass line, and it's kind of this like palm muted thing. So it kind of sounds like the slap tongue. So there's the bass line. I also dropped it to a key that worked well, D flat for this. And then, okay, the next step is the percussion. So we're thinking 3 parts here. The bass line, next step is the percussion. I'm doing it on 2 and 4. And then the tricky part, the melody. Now, it's one thing to do a jazz song where there's lots of syncopation, there's lots of upbeats. So on Tenor Madness, I was doing downbeats for my bass, and I was doing upbeats a lot of times for the melody. This song, every breath you take, it's all the downbeats. Every move you make. So how do I do that? I can't, there's multiphonics, but you can't really control those 2 notes at the same time. So I came up with one idea, and that was something kind of like what you might hear Bobby McFerrin doing, where I would play the bass and the percussion, and then I would stop and do the melody, and kind of let you imagine the bass line in your head, and I'd go back to the bass and percussion, back to the melody, while keeping that pop going. So that would sound like this. So that kind of works, hopefully you can hear the bass line in your head. Thank you. I'm going to leave that untapped for quicker access. Okay, so that was one thing. Now, also when you get to know me, I'm not satisfied very easily. I want to take things farther and farther. So I wanted to see, is it possible if I kept the bass line going that whole time on those 8th notes? Because if you think about it, if you subdivide the 16th notes, there's a whole world of 16th notes in between those 8th notes. I'm playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. I could play 16th notes on those upbeats. So I thought, okay, if I take the melody and then what if I anticipate by a 16th note every melody note? Now to do this, I had to use another saxophone technique, extended technique that's not talked about in a lot of circles. One other question really quick. How many of you guys would consider yourselves more jazz musicians? And how many more classical? Okay, not too many classical. Any both? Okay. Now, so this is another technique, kind of like slap tonguing, that comes a little more from the classical side. You'll see more classical saxophonists using these extended techniques. And it's this idea of double tonguing. And you hear double tonguing more often in like brass music or flutes. And everybody do this, just go ta 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 as fast as you can. Ta 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 ta. I can only go that fast. Ta 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 ta. If you want to go faster than that, so that's using this ta 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 tip of your tongue. Now we also have this back part of our tongue when we say a ka 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 ka. And so with double tonguing, we're going to go ta ka ta, and we're going to cut off the air with the back part of our throat instead of touching the reed. And so it's kind of like you get twice the movement. You get twice the tonguing per movement of the tongue. So now everybody just go taka 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 taka. Hopefully you can probably do that almost twice as fast. Now on saxophone, it's not the easiest thing to do, and especially because those cuz, we're used to when we tongue, we want the reed, we actually are hitting the reed and stopping it from vibrating. So this is instead doing something like a brass player where we're cutting the air off and that stops the sound. So if you're interested in doing the double tonguing, I do have a video online, but you gotta really work on those cuz, the cut, because we can all do the ta. You gotta be able to go cut. Now when I started, this was another one that took like, 4 months or so to learn. My cuz sounded like because it's weird doing that. And for some reason I wasn't satisfied with that sound. And so after a while I worked on to where my ta and then ka sounds about the same. And then you put them together and you can get you can go a lot faster than single tonguing. Now once again, just if you are interested in this, take your time with this because it's just a slow technique. This one and double tonguing just take the longest. Now this was key though. This opened a lot of doors for me, this double tonguing thing, because if I'm thinking 16th notes, taka 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 ta, 1 and a 2 and a, on the upbeats are the cuz. So going back to every breath you take, I'm playing ta 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 ta, and I'm slap tonguing ta ta ta, 1. And once again, I have all those cuz in between. So I'm gonna go ta 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 ta. And you have to jump up really high. Sounds like a piece of cake, right? It'll be easy. So that sounds like this, and I'll finish out the song here. Something like that.
Yeah.
So did that make sense? What I was doing there? Okay. Now that was definitely one of those songs where I wrote that sucker out. I wrote that bass line out, I compared the original melody, da da da, and once again with the moving everything forward and kind of seeing where I would put it in there. I even used like a music notation software so I could hit play and then oh no, move that note there, and then I would just go and just slowly speed that thing up. Okay, so from that point on, I remember that was right around the time, so I was living in this small town of Abilene, Texas. Anybody ever heard of Abilene, Texas? My wife has, that's good, okay. So I was a university instructor there. I went kind of straight to teaching from grad school, and it was a pretty small town. And there were like, 5 jazz musicians total. There was the one bass player, the one trumpet, the one piano. And a lot of times I would get asked to play at these gigs, and they didn't want to pay money. You guys know the drill. People don't want to pay, and so I was just kind of like, I don't want to ask them to play for free. I'll just do it myself. And so during that time, I was kind of experimenting more and more with this kind of solo playing. And then 2.5 or almost 3 years ago, my wife and I moved to Chicago, kind of for the purpose, both of us wanted kind of something different, and I was kind of thinking, I'm going to try this thing full time and see what happens. And then right around that time, I released my first YouTube video, and I called it Catch 'Em Up. I'm in this old warehouse, and it did pretty well. And let me play the song for you guys. This is called Catch 'Em Up.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anybody seen that video, by the way? All right, some of you. Cool.
I got a question real quick.
Yeah.
Who did you have do your videos? Because they're actually high quality.
Thank you. Yeah, good question. If you've seen my videos before, I like to, I like to go to kind of a cool place that has cool kind of natural reverb and kind of an abandoned place. My first couple of videos, I had another friend, a musician friend, and we used some of his cameras to do that. I've also had my wife do a couple of videos, and then otherwise, sometimes I've just done myself. You know, I have a DSL camera, kind of like one of those, a digital one, and then a Zoom recorder, and I just set it up, and I try to make it just extremely portable. Usually there's power in these places, so it's all just battery powered. And then another thing that I go for is because they're all, you know, I want to show that it's kind of one take. So a lot of times it's just a simple shot. But yeah, so good question.
They're high resolution, really interesting.
Yeah, I got a nice DSLR camera with a couple of lenses, and I try to read up about pretty much every time I do a video, I have to go back to the manual and be like, how do I move the f-stop? What is that? You know, and I don't do it quite enough, but thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks. So after releasing that video, it got a really good response, and I was really surprised. And before that, you know, I was kind of going in some different ways. I had studied very traditional jazz. I was kind of getting plugged into some funk groups around town. And then I was kind of doing that. And after that video happened, it was kind of like, wow, okay, there's kind of a response to this. Maybe I should focus on this a little bit more. And kind of more of my priorities and focus went to my solo stuff. And then pretty soon, people started, a couple of people that knew me asked me, and they were like, hey, would you, you know, you want to open for our band and play a couple of songs, like maybe 3 songs? And I had like 2 songs, and so it's like, when is it? Next week? Okay, sure. And then, you know, I need to figure out another song. Okay, and then maybe a couple of weeks later, or a month or so later, you know, someone was like, hey, we've got like 3 bands playing. You want to be one of the bands and play for like 20 minutes? It's like, sure. And then, okay, and then figuring out more stuff. And then a little bit later, a university professor contacted me and said, hey, you want to do like a 45-minute masterclass in performance? Sure, you know, and you see a theme here of the saying yes to everything and figuring it out later. And that gradual build, that's what allowed me, one, to just strengthen the chops. Because if you know about slap tonguing, it's pretty tiring at first. And just playing solo sax is pretty tiring. So that was kind of building up my chops. It was also getting me to really think more and more about, okay, how is it possible to entertain a crowd, to keep people interested, to keep myself interested, you know, for a 45-minute concert. And then it went to an hour festival, and I've gone up to an hour-and-a-half performance. And I'm even dreaming about, you know, a lot of Chicago jazz clubs, they want you to play like 2 or 3 sets for like 3 hours. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm just gonna keep going and we'll see what happens. But it got me to really think in ways that I hadn't thought before about, like, you know, what would I like to hear if I was listening, and how can I make this interesting? And so can I share some of these things that I kind of came up with you guys? Okay. So first of all, I remembered I was doing all this stuff, all these sounds with my mouth, tongue, and the instrument. And I remember watching guitar players, this thing called fingerstyle guitar. This good friend David Youngman who does this, and they're like hitting the guitar. You know, they're doing the finger tapping, and they're like doing percussive beats on it. And I remember thinking, I wonder if I could hit the saxophone in a way, and because I'm an adult now, I can do what I want with this thing. And so, but I eased into it because I remember thinking, well, my right thumb isn't doing anything. I mean, all it's doing is holding up the horn. That's not important right now. That is important, but it's just holding up the horn. It's not hitting any buttons. And then I remember purchasing on another horn a metal thumb hook. These are replaceable. And this is a P. Moret sax, awesome sax. You should check it out. And they come with these metal thumb hooks. And these are replaceable. So you can beat these all day long and you can just replace it. You're not going to damage the sax. So I was doing that. And so I kind of realized, one, that could kind of give me a little bit extra time. You know, if I'm doing like a... and so forth like that. You know, I don't have to... because because when it's just solo sax, when I stop blowing, the sound stops. So this is a way just for a little bit of just kind of some extra thing. It also allowed me to free me up to do a little bit of improv here and there. And then you can look at this later on. I went ring shopping with my wife at stores like Forever 21 and asking for their men's thumb rings, and I actually glued a few together, and this one actually has a ribbing on it, so I can even get a sound like something like that, like a Latin Guido sound. Thank you. You could tell I was thirsty. All right. So there's that thing, and I realized I could do different rhythms. I could do down and up with this. You know, I could basically treat it like it's a little percussion instrument of its own. And I've done a little bit with djembes, a little bit with drum set, and so it's kind of fun to do stuff like that. And let me actually play a song that does some different rhythms with this thumb ring, just the one thumb. I'll still be doing the kind of as the main backbeat, but you'll hear some other things. This is a song that I wrote after a recent trip through Europe. I went through Ukraine, and this was inspired by them. And it's the Ukrainian word for thank you. It's called Dyakuyu. Okay. All right. So that was one thing, the rings, that's been a fun thing to, also just like on piano playing, the left hand, right hand independence, like drummers, trying to keep this going while playing other grooves. It's just kind of a fun challenge for me. Then, I remember I remember I mentioned loving Bach in some of his music, and I remember listening to one of his pieces, the Orchestral Suite No. 3, and really loving this piece. And it's for orchestra, not for solo, and I was kind of messing around with it. And I remember just thinking, yeah, just the solo sax, that's just not as full, it's just missing something. And I don't really remember how I came across this idea, but I remember thinking about, I wonder if I could somehow use an egg shaker and like put it on the sax or something. And then I was like, oh, there's a big hole here. Let's just stick it in there and see if I can get some sound out of the egg shaker on this song. Of course, because yeah, I tell audiences that don't know saxophone that this is, of course, how Bach wrote this piece, arranged it for solo saxophone and egg shaker in Bell. So this is Orchestral Suite No. 3. Sorry, Bach. Not exactly how we wrote it. So, another thing that I thought about when I was just thinking kind of on this quest of, playing longer sets and trying to think of ways to keep it interesting and fresh, and I thought about, okay, vocals, that's people love to hear singing. I love to hear singing. And when I was younger, I used to be in a little trio, jazz trio with my dad. He played a little bit of keyboards, he sang, and I just do some saxophone stuff. I was just getting started. And I remember thinking, I wonder, what if, in a way, I could bring my dad with me on tour and get him to record him singing onto my iPhone. And I have this little speaker I'm gonna hook on here. And I thought, what if I could do a duet with him on the road where he sings in my phone and I play along. And so I'm gonna show you this. We'll try this. It'd be really cool if I could just like phone him in and we could do it live, but I don't trust his singing abilities that much, so we'll just record it. And then once again, I was kind of like, where could I put this thing? I don't want to like run through the system and, well, that bell, maybe it'll act like a megaphone. I'll just stick it right in there. So we'll just do that. So let's see if we can hear this. Somewhere
Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. There's trouble dust like lemon drops high above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow.
Dan, way to go, Dan. All right. My little speaker came over and unforgettable. Oh, that'd be a good song. Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's getting a little into the entertainer side of things. I like making people laugh, anyways. So that's always been a fun thing for me. Another technique that I have incorporated into my playing, you've already heard a little bit of this. And this comes maybe more from the free jazz side of things. It's this sound, this beautiful, beautiful sound. Known as... yeah, it was a good time with the train. Yeah, multiphonics. Yeah, so multiphonics is this idea where you do these weird fingerings with some fingers up, and it's kind of, technically it's altering very quickly between multiple pitches really quickly, and it kind of sounds like this, like you're hearing multiple tones at the same time. So if I do that again, you can actually hear some higher ones and some middle, just... There's different pitches in there. Now, it's hard to control those. You know, you can't, there aren't these perfect multiphonics for a C7 chord and then an F sharp, you know, flat 9 chord. And so my approach with these, because yeah, you might have heard this like in free jazz where it's kind of this atmospheric thing, kind of creating these interesting colors, or in some very avant-garde classical pieces. My thing is to kind of take a lot of these sounds and turn them percussive, or like rhythmic, kind of like the, taking that sound and then trying to apply it to some kind of a beat. So like one of the songs I did before, I went, kind of like it's like a town drum, something like that. So here's a song it's a more recent one that I wrote. I call it Empathique. And I actually, on YouTube, I actually have this done with Keith Harris, this really great freestyle rapper. We did that, but I'll just, come on out, Keith. That'd be crazy if I had to. Next time, that's a good idea. Keith emerges from the bathroom, ready to sing. Yes, I like that touch. Yeah, okay. I kind of made a solo version of this. So this is Empathique with some multiphonics, theme, ring stuff. There's a lot of stuff in this. Here we go. I always like to start this one to scare people, but you've already heard that sound.
Yeah.
It's my heavy metal one. Woo! And I'm gonna need more water. Normally I say when I run out of these, I have to stop. We got one right here. All right. As long as the waters keep coming, I'll keep going. Now, after a song like that one's kind of a workout. After a song like that, I realized, okay, I still need to give myself more of a break. I like to talk in between songs, but when I'm doing a concert and I'm playing more, sometimes I just need a little break. So I came up with a song arrangement just for this purpose. Now normally if I'm on a stage or something at a festival, I would just, at this point, sit on the edge of the stage. And you guys all know the great oldies tune, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, right? Okay. A lot of people in Europe don't know that song, which is a shame. But I changed the words for this occasion to Sitting on the Edge of the Stage for my little break song. And I'm going to do something a little different on this one. I'm not going to blow through the sax at all. I'm just going to accompany myself. So here we go. Playing up here on my own, just me and my saxophone. This thing I call BEATBox sax. You might guess, yeah, it's a tiring act. So now I'm sitting on the edge of the stage, 'cause I need to take a brief break. I'm just sitting on the edge of the stage, wasting time. I left my home in Chicago, not really, well, headed for this Evanston town. There we go. Many miles I traveled, actually it's just a couple miles, to see if folks would come around. And you're here, now I'm sitting on the edge of the stage. In a moment I'll get back up and play. So don't worry, I'm just sitting on the edge of the stage anyway. Hey, if you know this part, join in. Yeah. Sitting here finger rest in my mouth, singing the song for you now, giving my chops a break, 'cause quite honestly they're starting to ache. So now I sing to save some energy and to keep my tongue from starting to bleed, 'cause it really does. I'm just sitting on the edge of the stage desperately.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now I have to mention, this is a very special place for me, because with all the abuse that I put this horn through, I think Paul and your gang should love me, right? Because I have to take it in and get repaired all the time. Also, I do lots of, I've had some weird requests for you, haven't I? Like, I remember saying, okay, these pads are great on this P. Morat horn, but do you have anything that's like louder? Like, I want more sound. And so he's like, you know what? No, there is a kind. I don't know what they're called. And so I kind of requested a couple spots, mainly on that F, which is kind of where I'm mainly doing my tapping. And so I wanted the loudest pads. Usually you go the opposite way. And then I remember asking for a non-cork piece here, and you're like, it's kind of loud. It's good. It's like, do you think that matters to me? More sound, more clicks. Also, I mentioned the rings thing. You'll see I have a few more on. I'm kind of in the process of experimenting with more of these. I mainly use this right one, for this. On that song, I was doing a little bit of this. This has a metal thing there, and I was kind of doing that. But I've also been experimenting. Now, those of you band teachers, sax teachers, you're going to freak out at this in a bad way. But I've been experimenting with doing things like this. So you can see I've kind of crossed a point of no return from just the lonely thumb hook, and there's no going back now. Poor horn.
Is this part of your endorsement for that instrument?
Well, that I will admit, having an endorsement with Pete Morat saxophone also helps, because they're a little bit kinder about, hey, could you guys send me that side B flat key? I kind of broke it. You broke it? And, yeah. So that does help. Yeah.
When I came in a little late, I actually saw all the marks all over the side of your bell. And I'm like, what did he do?
Yeah, this is a brand new horn. This is like not 2 years old.
I saw it across the room, actually.
Yeah, now another thing I did do, I had, I think Jason did this, because I'm constantly experimenting with this stuff, and I just want to have like no rules, and I actually purposely bought just the cheapest horn I could find. I found this Chinese-made horn called Lade. I'd never even heard of the brand. It was $200, brand new. So it's gonna be great. And I bought it for the purpose of just like beating this thing and just trying what sounds can I get. Once again, thinking of that like, the finger-style guitar. More sound. I tried everything. I tried like in the shower, like putting water in here. I tried, against the wall, I'm like, and trying to play. That my teeth didn't like that one. And then I kind of crossed a point where I was realizing, oh, okay, yeah, some of these actually kind of sound cool. And then I was also realizing it was dentating it in some spots. And so that was when I asked Paul here, and Jason ended up doing, if he could put this little metal strip, I think it's from like a Barry sax, that I could hit that and it doesn't dent it quite so much. We also added a couple of these guys on the bottom so it doesn't dent that. So far it's holding up pretty well.
Have you tried horns besides the tenor?
What's that?
Have you tried other horns besides the tenor?
Yeah, I play alto. I just got a Barry. I'm super pumped about it. I've already started scratching it up, so that's a good sign. And soprano, yeah, that's a good question. And you can do all these sounds you can do on all those instruments. You can do the slap tonguing, the double tonguing. The reason I like the tenor right now, why I gravitated towards this, it kind of has a good middle range where I really like, Well, like the bari sax, if you slap tongue the low end of the bari sax, it sounds amazing. It's sounds incredible. But the upper end doesn't quite punch through with melodies. And so the tenor to me it was just low enough where I could get just, sounds just bassy enough, but then the top kind of cuts through a little bit. So that's kind of why I chose the tenor. I just got a bari, and I'm really loving it, and I'm really, though, working hard on like the altissimo, because I want to be able to play higher on that, where most bari players just want to play lower. I'm just kind of like focusing on the high end, so we'll see. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, good question. So anyways, so that's another thing I've been kind of experimenting with. This is also I'm kind of thinking about, like, as if I do some duo stuff, I could actually do like drums on the sax, accompanying someone else.
You put like a little washboard, a little ribbed, little piece
Yeah,
of
I have, someone said that, and I've experimented with, well, it kind of got to a point also where it's like, I could tape a cymbal on, then I could put a bass drum on the back, and then I was like, wait a minute, this is going down a path I don't want to go. Someone forwarded me on Facebook a video of some older guy, he was tap dancing and he had the washboard, the honk honk, and I'm just like, is this how people see me? No.
on your knees.
Yeah, exactly. So right now my goal is just like, just the sax. What can I do with just the sax, and where it particularly looks still like a sax? You'll also notice I don't use any effects right now with my show. Because that's an obvious place to go. Like looping or besides my dad. You're right. Very true. And that's just kind of been, I don't know, it's kind of been a stubborn thinking for me that I'm actually kind of glad that I stuck with, because there have been multiple times in my life, it happens all the time, it still happens, where, okay, I love the sax as an instrument. It can play beautiful melodies, you can hold a note and go, but there are times when I just look at the piano and I'm just jealous of it, bass line, chord, melody, so easy, sustain pedal, and it's just like, man, that's so unfair with the guitar. But for me, that kind of dissatisfaction with my instrument has been, I think, what has driven me to create things that I wouldn't have normally done. Of saying, I wonder, I can't play those notes exactly at the same time, but I wonder if I can create the effect of that. Or I wonder if I can get more sounds, if I can make it sound like this, or if I can think of it like there's a bass drum sound and a tom sound and a hi-hat sound. And so really that dissatisfaction, I think that's like a lot of artists, something's lacking in the world or something you're not satisfied with, and then you go and try to find a solution for it. So that's been a big thing for me. I actually like listening to, right now I'm listening to a lot of podcasts about like inventors, creators, just because I like thinking like that. And a lot of my practice nowadays is I'm like half of it easily, I'm just like sitting around with this thing, dinking around, trying different sounds. Not all the sounds work, and that's the thing. If you're a person that wants to really try to do some new things that haven't been done before, you're going to obviously fail much more than you want to. To find good things that work, you have to go through, of course, the 10 bad things. So I could name tons of things that I spent so much time on and they didn't pan out. Like for instance, I remember kind of realizing that I could get a sound out of the saxophone sucking in, like breathing in, and I could play like that. So not circular breathing, but breathing in, and I was really excited. I was getting a basic sound, and I was like, oh my gosh, this could be huge. I could go, and I worked on it for weeks and weeks, and this is what it sounds like, breathing in on the saxophone. Let's see if I can do it. That's all you get today. Amazing, right? After months of practice. Thank you. I'm not going to drink water. It doesn't deserve it for that one. Yeah, so that's an example of, okay, that was bad idea. Put that one away. Keep moving on. I mean, something did come out of that, and sometimes good things can come out of your mistakes. Like I kind of got this sound out of that. The sucking in and out.
Scratching. Yeah,
that kind of scratching sound. So, you never know what you'll come up with, but you have to go through a lot of junk to come up with some cool things. Yeah.
Juice harp. You gotta incorporate juice harp or something. You get the in and out of the harmonic of it.
like actually using one while playing?
I mean, it's a really cool sound.
It is a cool sound, yeah.
You kind of got a little spring going on the.
That is true. Yeah, just this little guard there. I put some screws on there. That was getting that sound. Paul's laughing like, what the heck? But yeah, let me. So some other things that I've experimented with. Another big one for me. You heard my dad sing. Now, also when I was younger, I was in just like a typical Americana garage band in my high school days. Any of you guys did that? Like, you play saxophone, but any of you guys ever like just played in a rock band? You just get behind the drums, or you just make noise. We were terrible, but it was super fun. I did rhythm guitar, and I sang. And that was another thing where I was kind of a little bit jealous about the guitar, and because this is my serious instrument, but I wish I could somehow sing a little bit. I like doing that, accompany myself while singing. And you heard me do the little finger tapping. That was kind of one thing I came up with. But then I wanted to see, can I do it kind of with more traditional playing? And so I'm going to play for you guys a song where I do that. This is another oldie song. This is called Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away. There ain't no sunshine when she's gone. And she's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away. Wonder this time when she's gone. Wonder if she's gonna stay. 'Cause ain't no sunshine when she's gone. She's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away. 'Cause I know, yeah, I leave that damn thing alone. 'Cause ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. And this house just ain't no home. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. So yeah, I quickly learned that the only downside of that is, of course, you can't breathe. There's no time to breathe. When I'm supposed to be taking a breath, you run out of air, but you can find ways. So there was that. I realize we're getting near the end here, and I got maybe a couple more songs I'd like to play. But any questions just while I'm here? Yeah.
I'm just curious about your setup and how hard.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
Because it's for the slap tonguing, the harder to read, it's harder to slap tongue, correct?
Yes, that is a good point. Yeah. So when you do slap tongue, and let me just talk a little bit about slap tongue, and then I want to talk about my gear as well. Thank you. So I did mention I would talk about slap tonguing. The basic gist of it, and yes, it is easier to do with softer reeds. So if you're going to try this, probably use a bad reed because you're going to chip lots of reeds. If you notice, I have a clear reed. This is a Leger reed. Anybody use Leger out there? Any Leger guys? Okay, try these things out. These things are awesome. I think they're the future of reeds. Lots of benefits. And wow, I had this thing on so tight. What's that?
I was curious.
Yeah. Now the truth is you don't have to use a synthetic, to slap tongue. You can do it on cane. It's just you're gonna chip lots of reeds and just kind of randomly they'll chip. But So to do the slap tonguing thing, I recommend kind of there's two major steps, two major hurdles. The first one is just take a reed, because you just got to learn to get this suction thing with your tongue. And I just suggest, like, not even at your practice session, just have it like by your table, like if you're watching TV or something, and just try it like 2 minutes every day, because you're not going to get it the first day, you're not going to get it the second day. Once again, you're going to think there's something wrong with your tongue. That's this thing that I went through. And you're just going to sit there and you're going to put the reed down, upside down, you know, like it would be. And you're just going to put it on your tongue and lift it off and try to get it to stick to your tongue. And once again, it has nothing to do with breathing in. It's your tongue is actually kind of doing like the plunger thing. And if you guys can do that, that's kind of half of it. You know, you're folding down the middle, but you have to also kind of fold down the front and the back part. And so just kind of put it on your tongue. And you're just kind of pulling it off and just doing different things with your tongue, just experimenting. And then, like I said, you're going to do that for 5 minutes, nothing. Next day, darn it, you know, it's not going to work. And then one day, this is going to happen. Oh! Oh! Oh, Rachel, look! Oh, yeah! All right, so... Yeah, so, and everyone will be like, what, okay, that's dumb. So that's huge though, because that is, you can't do it without that. You gotta get the suction from the tongue, because it's not breathing in. So once you can do that, you put it on your mouthpiece, and just see if you can do the same thing on the mouthpiece. And you're not gonna use your normal embouchure, you're just gonna try to get that same suction. Once you get that, put it on the horn. And that part, you know, it might have taken me 2 weeks just to get that suction. So it's just a weird thing. Put it on the horn and just see, once again, if you can get the same thing, and you're gonna use a weird embouchure, you're gonna kind of tilt your head back, but you're gonna keep your teeth firmly on the bottom. And then the next step is kind of the one that just takes the longest amount of time, is you're just gonna gradually see if you can use less and less tongue until you can get back to your somewhat normal embouchure. So you're gonna go, until you're using just a little bit of your tongue. And it's amazing how little of your tongue you need to get that little suction cup. It's crazy. And it just takes, once again, that just takes months of just doing it to get there. Now, once you can do that, there's two types of slap tonguing. There's the open slap, which gives you that snare sound, kind of like similar to that. And I'm just dropping my jaw, it's easier to do. And that just gives that big percussive pop. And then the other type, which takes a little bit more to master, is the closed slap. And that's where you're fingering notes and the pitch changes. Now the key thing with this is the secret is you have to bite down hard on the reed, kind of forward and up, because you have to close off the reed. At its resting state, it needs to be touching the mouthpiece, so that when you then pull it with your tongue, it slaps back to hit the mouthpiece. A weird thing with that is your slap tonguings are often going to be quite sharp because you're biting down hard. But so if I go from normal embouchure, the open slap, here's my normal embouchure. And that's what a lot of people sound like when they're first doing it. And so once again, now you're going to hear me, I'm going to bite down on the reed, I'm going to close off the reed, and you're going to hear it clear up. Closing it off, it's slapping to hit that top part. And once again, the goal is that you're using pretty normal embouchure. My jaw comes out a little bit forward to give a little bit of extra room for the tongue. But the goal is so that you can go back and forth, you know. And my reed is getting a little loose. Those are alternating normal tonguing in that. So I don't want to be going, you know, but you have to start there. So once again, 6 months at minimum. Don't get discouraged until you get to that 6 months point, because it's just a hard thing. And let me just answer the rest of your question before. So I mentioned the Leger reed, which is really nice for that.
What string?
Good question. When I'm playing like in a fusion group, like I play in this band called Low Spark, we're playing tonight at a live one. I use a 3 for that. But when I do solo stuff, I use 2.5 or 2 3/4. A cool thing about Leger reeds is they have quarter strengths. Part of the reason is, yeah, the slap tonguing can get tiring, but just playing solo. You know, when I don't have to play as loud, I'm often mic'd, and I can just last longer. So I do like the soft reeds. But if you're gonna practice it, use a soft reed, because it's just, it'll be tiring at first. And then you'll also notice I do use a Jody Jazz mouthpiece. This is an amazing mouthpiece. Like I said before, you can do all these things on any mouthpiece, classical, jazz. This piece, I don't know if you've ever tried the Jody DV. Do you guys have some in stock here? Okay, cool. It's just an all-around, just an amazing piece. You know, I can use it for the warmth of the, you know, doing subtoning, and then also, you know, you can really put some power through. So check that thing out.
The poor man's DV, the Super Tone Master.
The Super Tone Master? Is that like what it used to be called?
Or what is it? I'm trying to think.
Because there's the there's the HR, the hard rubber. That's cheaper.
Okay, I'm talking about
A different product.
Thinking Autolink.
Autolink, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, get this.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, you can do this stuff on all those pieces. This is just the one that clicked for me. I also use BG ligatures, and you might notice because I'm pushing down on this all the time, if I use a normal neck strap, it just kills the neck. And so I'm hooked in at the belt, down behind, but you don't notice that because it's coming through. So it actually is going up, and so it doesn't put all the strain on my neck. So that's a BG, some type of strap you can look out. And then I mentioned the P. Moreau SAX. So, and I do want to thank those people, those companies, for help sponsoring me being here to drive all the way on the L here, because that was like $2.50. So, no, you had a question.
Yeah, have you ever heard of the band Moonhooch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah, have you ever like contacted them or like?
I went to their show when they played at Martyrs, and I talked to one of the guys, and just one, I wanted to see if he had seen any of my videos, or you know, and I just wanted to see them play, and he responded to me afterwards. I didn't want to be like, hey, we should
I just
play.
thought that, it would be cool if you worked with them.
It would be cool, yeah, and I've done some small ensemble things. I actually did a duo thing with this guy, Pedro Saxo, whose picture is on the wall back there. The wall of fame, there he is. Rachel's pointing to him. He's another guy who does this solo stuff. He comes from a more classical side of things. He's got a classical mouthpiece. He does a lot of the circular breathing things as well, and yeah, where mine might be a little bit more funky. So it's just a different thing, but check out his stuff as well. We did a little thing we called Extreme Sax ×2. We did some duo stuff as well. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, there's a lot of potential for some cool combinations. I'd love to get a group together of like a duo or trio, like with no rhythm section instruments, because we don't need them anymore. Like a trumpet, trombone, we all do lots of extended techniques, and we find ways to do cool songs. So I have thought of that. So yeah, thanks. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do you do that like scratching sound?
Yeah. And that, you know, I think that's one that I don't have a tutorial on, so I'm glad you asked. So I do have these, like the sucking one, that's just the sucking in. But then there's this one. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Okay, I'm getting to my secrets now. This is worth the big bucks. So it's actually not as hard as you might think. The secret is it's two things. It's overtones, you know, your overtone series. So you're doing an overtone, so I'm fingering like a low B flat or C or something, playing a high overtone, and then the other thing is I'm double tonguing up there. Now normally when we double tongue, we try to clean it up, and I mentioned, you know, the cuz, getting them nice and clean. We want it to sound like a normal tonguing. And when you get to the high end of the horn, it starts doing this. It's easy for it to do this. You can hear the pitch kind of bend, particularly when I'm doing those cuz. To get that scratching sound, I'm trying to get those sounds. So I'm just doing sloppy double tonguing with the overtones. So I'm just going taka taka taka. And then if you can do different, you know, overtone. So another benefit of the double tonguing thing, the record scratching. So yeah, glad you asked. A couple more questions and I'll do one last song. Yeah.
Yes. He already asked, or you mentioned somewhere with this question, you use different strengths for different reasons. You know,
Yeah.
big, two and a half or whatever. I was going to ask you that, but then you already answered that. And then the other part of that is it? I realize it's easier on your solo act because it's less work, but is it also beneficial as far as balancing out the volumes to better match your vocal sounds like that?
Oh, good point. Yeah, that's interesting. It's mainly more just for the strength thing, for the endurance. But, you know, it is a thing that I don't play super loud, except for that song. You know, I'm kind of a little more controlled. And that's actually why I like the System 76 of the P Moriarts. They have another kind, the 66, that's a little bit bigger sound, and I like the little more control. Pretty much everything that I play, the goal is that it comes out here, except for my vocals, except for my singing. My singing, when I'm playing a bigger festival or something, I'll have a singing mic and I go, everybody, or I don't sing that one, but I sing and then I play. But otherwise, it's just a mic here. So all the stuff like, because I'm doing some things like that kind of stuff where I'm just going. Now, if I were to go, that would not get picked up. But the key thing is everything I play, I want it to come out here. So when I'm doing that, I keep my mouth on this. I drop my jaw a little bit to get that sound, and a lot of times I'll close a lot of the keys so that the sound does kind of go through, and it can even kind of act like a megaphone, you know.
And do you find yourself taming down subconsciously on your louder sax stuff just to make everything more balanced coming out the bell?
I wish I could say I thought about that, but I don't.
You just did that.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Because, yeah, like if you were to hear me tonight at a live one, I mean, I'm just going to be blowing as loud as I can the whole time because we have a pretty loud drummer. It's just rocking kind of stuff. And a lot of that stuff, another question people ask me is, in a full group, do I do a lot of this stuff? And I might use, I might do some of that stuff, or that stuff works. But a lot of this will get lost with the drummer. So a lot of times I'm not doing that. I'm doing more just kind of the typical fusion saxophonist role.
That was my question. You can't use that in a loud band set.
Yeah, and pretty much if there's drums, it just gets covered up. I have a couple times done little things where I'm like trading with the drums, but the rest of the band kind of has to drop out. I'll do moments where, the band's building and I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And it cuts out and it's just me, That's a way I'll get it in. But then there's also sometimes I just like playing like a normal saxophonist once in a while, and it feels good. So.
Does your throat, I remember watching some of your videos and practicing straight for 2 or 3 weeks, and I would get really tired, and then I would get a sore throat only when I was practicing that double tongue stuff. I was just
okay, now this is where my wife is smiling, because she's like, tell the truth, Derek. Tell them about your throat issues. No, I have noticed that some techniques do seem to be a little bit rougher on my throat. The big one for me is just when I do this pop, which is just, once again, it's just doing that. I just notice that I'm kind of straining my throat a little bit. And if I do that a lot, I'll notice it'll get a little hoarse. And I have to drink lots of water, take breaks. Sometimes after gigs, my throat will be a little hoarse. Then again, I also have the problem, I don't know if you guys struggle with this, but from the beginning, we're always taught about like breathing diaphragm, and I usually do, but there are times when I know I could be breathing more here. So that's a thing I need to work. A thing I need to constantly check myself, because I'm so focused on sounds up here that sometimes I'm just using too much of my throat, and I need to open up, what your teachers told you. Blow from the diaphragm. Jamin, blow from the diaphragm, right? Like I tell you. So yeah, so I do struggle with that sometimes. For sure, that is an issue. So good point. I don't know if they're inherently bad techniques. I'm hoping not. And I know other sax players that do lots of double tonguing, and they seem to be healthy. So, but it's something I gotta be careful about. One more question, and then we can do individual questions afterwards. I'll play one more song, and if you want to stick around, yeah.
You kind of just answered about the throat question. I was just going to ask about the pressure and stuff like that, and how you're breathing in and out with the tongue slapping. And then you mentioned earlier about your tongue bleeding sometimes.
We're getting to the dark part of the masterclass. The pain.
It's not taking that much force on the end of the read there that you're actually cutting your tongue?
Yeah, so the bleeding thing, because, and that's a great point. A lot of people, when they try to slap tongue, they think there's a big thing about the air, shooting the air at the right time. It's really not. It's mostly the strength of your slap, because I'm working on a song where I'm trying to sing while I slap, where I go like, something like that. So that shows you it doesn't take that much air, and you can actually breathe in. So it's, yeah, giving a little bit more air does help it come out, but it's just, and that really is just a steady air. So your tongue it's pretty violent against that tongue, and it's just constantly, and when I'm doing every other note, it's kind of scraping and sucking, doing all that stuff. So I do build up somewhat calluses, but I think the tongue, it's a super fast healing part of the body, so it's not like I just get this really hard. And so if I'm like traveling for 2 days or something, and then I play for 4 hours, it's pretty much guaranteed I'm gonna get a little bit of blood on my tongue. Though the good thing is, I posted a picture once of when it was really bloody here and blood started coming out of the keys. I posted a picture on Facebook, and that like got more likes than ever. In my generation, we love likes on Facebook. So it was worth it.
That should be the name of your new album. Blood on the Tongue.
Blood on the Tongue, something like that. I'll work on that. Yeah. So there are some risks. There are risks on the horn, on your body, but I think it's worth it. So, yeah, if any of you guys have any other questions, please feel free to talk afterwards. I really want to thank Paul Maslin and this awesome store. Obviously, they don't charge anything to come here, so instead of doing that, buy some things at his store, have him fix your horn. Beat your saxophone and have him fix it. Have him install these weird things on there. And just thank you guys for coming out and for the support, and hopefully we'll cross paths again. Feel free, please go to my website, DerekBrownSax.com. There's links to the YouTube stuff. I've got tour dates and things on there. I also do have CDs if anyone would like one for $10. Beatbox Sax if you're interested. And I'm going to end with one more song for you guys. I'm going to do, which is my most popular song on YouTube, one where I'm singing, it's Stand By Me. And usually I say, this goes out to my wife who couldn't come to Europe with me, but she's here, so it still goes out to you. Crumble and fall, or the mountain crumble to the sea, yeah. 'Cause I won't cry, no, no. I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. Singing, darling, darling, stand by me. Just stand by me. Just stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me.
Some questions. I have food too, so hang around. All right, thanks everybody.
Hey, can I get a selfie with you all?
Yeah.
Once again, because I like likes. I want likes on my pictures. Everybody wave. 3, 2, 1. All right. Great. Thanks. Oh, sweet. Yeah. You want me to sign it? Sure.
Use your name. John, J-O-N.
J-O-N, all right. So do I stay on camera most of the
I
time?
think so. I got a arrow there. Yeah, I may have missed the first two. I'll shoot. You want me to try and send it to you if I got it?
Paul's gonna send it, I think. I'll get it from him. But thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Enjoy. Thanks for coming. Front row seat.
Amazing.
Thank you. Thanks.
Anyone that can do it?
Well, I mean, there's like that Pedro Saxo guy. He does some similar things. Kind of just zoned other stuff. And stubbornly kind of just pursuing this kind of thing. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, interesting. Yeah, thanks for coming. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. It was awesome.
Thank you.
So I got another slap ton question for you.
Okay.
So, why is your tip opening on that piece? And you notice any difference with like more open?
Good question.
So I tried like
I should experiment more with that because it's an 8 star, so fairly open. That's also why the slightly softer reed, but you know, a traditional jazz opening. And I mean, I can do it on my C star and alto. It does seem like there's a little bit more, you know, just the flexibility of. I don't know if it's easier or harder necessarily. You probably do have to bite a little bit harder to close off that reed. Now, one thing I think I do like about the tip opening, the wider, is I was mentioning that because you bite down on it and it goes sharp, the wider tip opening kind of allows me when I play up higher to like also raise the pitch to match it. So just a little bit more control.
what is the facing?
But I mean, it's an 8 star. So
You said Roger versus Kane Reed, not really much of a difference as far as difficulty.
not much as difficulty, but I'm just I couldn't do this on Kane because you'll just do it and you'll just randomly chip it. I mean, these will wear down after a while, and you'll see like little cracks will start to form. But on Kane, I'll just be doing it like I normally do, and then all of a sudden, it's just split there, and all of a sudden I can't do it. So it's just not quite strong.
Is it entirely what you're doing just on the face of the reed, not anything on the tip at all?
Correct. Because you
I
can.
find myself getting closer.
I met a guy who was like literally scraping his tongue to get it to kind of slap, and it kind of worked. But no, it's truly. I mean, I'm sure my tongue is like right up there, but it really is still getting a little that suction on the bottom of the face of it. So it's just, are you able to get the suction of just the reed?
Not yet.
Okay, so that's the thing you got to do. Is just once again, just sit with the reed.
It's been like, I've been trying for like a couple months and still like it seems.
And nothing.
Yeah,
You
nothing.
can get the.
I'm starting to
Yeah. So that's good. Because it's kind of trying to do kind of stuff like that all the time. Another thing you might try is a wide, just to practice with like a wider reed. Just get like a cheap berry reed. I even had, because I learned to slap tongue, one of the best things for me, because I was just checking out all these YouTube videos, there was a bass clarinet player that was talking about it, and she was talking about like using like this like, I don't know what it was, like something that she used to like put her reeds on, to like sample, just a flat surface, and she would use that and try to get suction off of that. So this huge wide surface so you can just use your whole tongue. And then once you can do that, you can learn how to because I definitely would not suggest, on a soprano that would be right. You can do it, but it's just tough to start. So maybe try getting a berry reed, wider. Try it on some flat, like a mirror thing or something, because you can totally get it.
May I ask, with these leger reeds that you use, how long does a reed last?
I mean, that's one of the benefits of them, is that they last a long time.
Can you play a whole night's gig on one leger?
Yeah, for sure. Yep, I'll go at least. With what I do really hard with it, I mean, I could go like a couple weeks probably, whereas a normal reed, it wouldn't last the show. Other players we'll talk about with normal playing, where maybe they get like a week or two out of a normal reed, they get, months. So you just get one reed instead of
Eventually it just starts collapsing.
this one, yeah, it'll get these little tiny cracks as it's kind of wearing down. Now, there's different types of leger reeds. There's the standard cut, the first one that came out, it's just called